Okay, hi pals, I'm Casey, and let's talk about the books that I read in July. If you're new here, this is I Don't Know What I'm Doing, and I do all the things all your other favorite booktubers like to do. And today I really want to talk about my reading in the month of July. Instead of jumping straight into the books I read and what star ratings I gave them, I want to give myself a chance to talk about just my overall thoughts for my reading at the beginning of the month and at the beginning of the video. So let's do that, shall we? July was a pretty good reading month for me. Overall, I didn't have any bad books that I read this month. I had a few disappointing ones, but I had a lot of really good books that I read this month, and I was very happy. The last several months I've been in like fighting a reading slump or just kind of like just on the other side of it, and this was the first month where I really felt like everything kind of picked back up, and I was very happy with a lot of things that I read, and I wasn't really like disappointed or bothered by anything that I finished. I did have some DNFs that were very frustrating to read, which is why I gave up on them, but I will talk about those in a different video. Okay, let's jump into the star ratings for the month. And so I gave out no 1 or 2 stars, so we're gonna start with the 3 stars. My 3 stars were Oryx and Crake by noted TERF Margaret Atwood. The reason I'm throwing that in there is just so you don't think that I'm unaware of it. I am very aware that she's a TERF. I bought that book used years ago and I had it on my shelves, so I went ahead and grabbed it and read it this month. So no money went to her whenever I made the purchase or when I read it. From the Neck Up and Other Short Stories by Aaliyah Whiteley, and The Haunting of Tramcar 015 by P. Jelly Clark. My 4 stars for the month were A Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin, The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, a book I can't talk about because I am participating in the St. Martin's Press boycott, Chainsaw Man Volume 12 by Tetsuki Fujimoto, and We Speak Through the Mountain by Premi Mohammed. And my 5 stars for the month were Hunger by Roxane Gay, It Was Vulgar and It Was Beautiful by Jack Lowry, From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Dowdy, The Burning God by R.F. Kuang, and The Devourers by Indra Das. Moving on to superlatives, and the worst book that I read this month has to go to Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. This is a post-apocalyptic literary fiction following a man whose name is now, I believe, Yeti. No, it's Snowman. As he is moving through the world after the world has ended, and him reminiscing on what happened to the world and what happened in his life before. This was fine. I don't know a whole lot to say about this because I didn't feel like there was just a whole lot in it. It was fine. I didn't think it was anything new as far as post-apocalyptic tales are concerned. And I did find it very frustrating at times to read because this was just, you know, a man. I know it's written by a woman, but it was just a man talking about his middle school teacher's chest, and that was very frustrating and bothersome to read at times. But it was meh. It was very middle of the road. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I'm not really compelled to continue the series, even though I do have the second one already on my shelves, but this was fine. It was fine. Moving on to my most disappointing for the month, and I'm going to give that to From the Neck Up and Other Short Stories by Aaliyah Whiteley. This is just a short story collection from this author. This is all very speculative fiction, and if you're new to this channel, then you won't know, words, that I really love this author and I love everything else that I've ever read from her. This one just was really frustrating to get through. I think there were a couple of really standout short stories in here, particularly the first one, but overall what would happen would be something interesting, something crazy, something creative, and then at the end, in the last 2 sentences, we're going to shoehorn in a message that you could have picked up yourself easily, but that the author wanted to make sure that you didn't misunderstand. And I hate when that happens. It would be really frustrating because I'd be like, this was really creative. This was a very interesting way to talk about this. Oh, and now we've just laid it out so that, you know, just to make sure that none of us missed the very obvious point. It was very frustrating, and it really would kill my enjoyment for 75% of the short stories in here when it would happen. Moving on to my most surprising for the month, I'm actually going to do 2 books for this because I want to talk about both of them, and the first one that I'm going to talk about is The Haunting of Tramcar 015. This is a science fiction set in alternative Cairo in 1912, and this is a world where magic coexists with the real world, and it has advanced technology quite a bit, and Cairo is a massive power in the world world because they have aligned themselves with Jin. And honestly, this was really interesting. And the only reason I gave it 3 stars is because I wanted this to be a full-length novel. I thought it was really interesting, really fun, and I was having such a good time in this world. I know there are more in this world, including a full-length novel in and of itself, which I believe the end of this is setting up, but I wanted this story itself to be a full-length novel. I love the exploration of different mythologies, different cultures, and especially like, you know, living in the United States and being white, I hear a lot about like Roman and Greek and Norse mythology, but getting more mythological and cultural beings from Middle Eastern countries and Asian countries was very, very interesting. I had a great time with this, and I just wanted more of this, and I really want to continue reading in this world. My other most surprising book for the month was We Speak Through the Mountain by Premi Mohamed. This is a sequel to this novella right here, The Annual Migration of Clouds, and I really enjoyed this. I put a hold in on this like a month or 2 ago. This is very newly released, and I didn't realize, even though I should have, because the covers are very much similar in theme and in composition, but I just put a hold on this because I really enjoyed this author's work, and I really enjoyed this. I had such a good time. I enjoyed it more than the first one, and I loved seeing, I should tell you what this is about. This is post-apocalyptic speculative fiction, and it's just so interesting. We are still following Reed after the events in the first book and her coming to the university, and honestly, this one was much more dystopian than the first, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the themes, I enjoyed the story, I had a very good time with it, and I think it was just a lovely sequel. And for a book I didn't expect to be a sequel, I had a great time with it, and I was actually really happy that this series continued after I read this one. Okay, I'm gonna move on and talk about my best for the month. Because I read multiple short story collections, I also want to include the best short story collection that I read this month, and that is going to go to Mouthful of Birds. This is a translated work. This is a lot of horror, a lot of speculative fiction, and honestly, this was so interesting. All the short stories in here I thought were really interesting, creepy, entertaining, heartbreaking. It really just kind of ran, you know, across the spectrum of emotions for me, and I had such a good time with it, and I thought it was really fun. Each short story felt very unique. It felt very much like it was its own world and its own characters, and I really loved it. I had a great time with this. This was lovely to read and to just enjoy over the course of a couple days. The best fiction book that I read in the month of July is going to go to The Burning God by R.F. Kuang. This is the 3rd and last book in the Poppy War series, and this is just such a lovely wrap up to Rin and Kitei's story, as well as everything going on in this world. This is the final book in a fantasy series, so I'm not going to give you a synopsis for what this is or the other books, but this was really, really so good and just relentless. From moment 1 to moment done, it really did not take its foot off the gas. There was so much going on, and honestly, I really enjoyed this, and I truly enjoyed the ending, because just at a certain point in this, when everything keeps happening and it keeps feeling like we are getting the climax of the story, but it's only so far into the book, I just had no idea how it was going to end, and I think there was no other way for this to end, and it was just handled beautifully. I think everything in here was very intentional, and I really enjoyed the feeling of just intensity throughout reading this. And then my best nonfiction for the month I'm going to give to Hunger by Roxane Gay. This is a memoir. This is talking about the author's experience with her large body, with her, not just her relationship to her body, but also to her wants and needs, and specifically to the feeling of hunger. Not just hunger for food and sustenance, but also for love, for sex, for, you know, wanting to feel fulfilled as a person and as a creative person. And overall, this was so heartbreaking. It was so sad, and it was so so moving in places, and there were just passages of this that I wrote down as I was reading it while I was listening to the audiobook, and it really has stuck with me since I read it early in this month, and I just absolutely love this. And if you're interested in this, I can't recommend the audiobook enough. The author narrates it herself, and it's extremely moving. And then a part of my wrap-ups that I often forget, I'm going to talk about my favorite cover for the month, and that's going to go to The Devourers by Andrew Doss. This was also my favorite book I read this month, even though it was not the best book I read this month. Just a moment to just appreciate how beautiful this dust jacket is. It's absolutely incredible, and I loved it. It's not only beautiful on the outside, but it's also beautiful on the inside. Okay, that's it. That is my July wrap up. Please leave me a comment down below saying whatever you want. I don't care. I want to talk to people. Let's hang out. Please feel free to do algorithm things. I will see you next Friday, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.